So we've got a little bit of a cool update for you if you're an Xbox Series X fan, and this should pretty much make you extremely happy, and I'm going to explain pretty much why you should be happy with this news, because, you know, we're finally starting to really get an idea for what the Xbox Series X can do, and not only are we getting that, but it's like, you know, about time we start getting the content and everything else that comes with it. You know, I mean, for me personally, I was actually going to skip getting an Xbox Series X at launch. You know, Microsoft had previously let me down a little bit in the past, but then they announced that they bought, you know, Bethesda, ZeniMax, you know, and all those games were going to be exclusive, you know, the newer stuff, and that got me excited for the platform again, you know. And then we kind of get mired down with, you know, lockdowns and things, so some of this stuff can be a little bit understandable and some of it a little bit less understandable, but you know, I feel like so far we haven't really got those games that take advantage of the platform, but this is a little bit of good news, and I think everybody will probably agree, and I of course will link it so you guys can check it out. So FSR 3 and frame generation looks like it's going to hit Xbox Series X this year, and it could debut in Indiana Jones, in fact. So Indiana Jones and the Great Circle from Machine Games and Bethesda is an Xbox exclusive, and there's a good chance it'll support FSR 3 on both. According to this, they just announced FSR 3.1, AMD did, which brings a couple of significant updates to the company's upscaling and frame generation tech. Image quality improvements when upscaling and decoupling frame generation, so it can run with other upscaling technologies like DLSS or as is. Basically, AMD has included support for Vulkan API and Xbox in this update specifically. Xbox Game Development Kit GDK support, although FSR 3 upscaling and frame generation have been available on PC for a while, they have yet to make their console debut. The new FSR 3.1 update only hints at the update arriving later this year, but mentioning Vulkan and Xbox in the same sentence does suggest that we might see support for Xbox's big first-party holiday release, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle from Machine Games and Bethesda. So this is coming from Tweaktown, and like I said, I'm going to link this article in the description below so you can check it out. Machine Games, best known for developing the most recent Wolfenstein games, has a knack for creating visually impressive action-packed first-person experiences. The studio also collaborated closely with id Software, working on recent Quake remasters and using id Tech for all of its games. With its first-person perspective, the assumption is that Indiana Jones and the Great Circle uses the latest id Tech version. What does this have to do with FSR 3 and frame generation on the Series X? id Tech on PC supports DLSS and ray tracing via the Vulkan API. So even Xbox is purely a DirectX machine. With Indiana Jones and the Great Circle launching on PC and Xbox, the only way it can support FSR 3 on both platforms is with FSR adding Vulkan and Xbox support, which is exactly what they've done with FSR 3.1. So it does sound like Microsoft is doing their best to make sure that, you know, games are running and looking better. Like, this is going to help with a lot of frame rate issues and things like that. So in a game, to put it kind of into perspective, so a game that maybe was kind of stuck at 30 frames per second, thanks to this stuff, they might be able to get it to run at 60 frames per second because you're using like some of the upscaling technology and things like that. So where in the past, when you had a lower resolution, it really took a bump on how the game looked, and now it looks like that's not going to be an issue. So when you see stuff like that, I think that it really kind of helps out, and it helps the Xbox it look much better, in my opinion. So you'll see something that maybe runs 1080p or what have you, but it looks just as good as native 4K, and I think that's something that we cannot take for granted at any way, shape, or form. I think Microsoft knows what they're doing, and hopefully they continue to offer a lot of cool things like this in the future. So you know, I hope to see them continue to do amazing things like this. You know, like I said, I think it's important that Microsoft on their platform takes things to the next level. So something that maybe was 60 could possibly reach 120, and so on and so forth. So what does this do with FSR 3 and frame generation? Again, it could be a big game changer for Xbox and the updates going forward. Sounds like FSR 3 upscaling and frame generation are coming to Xbox this year, so expect to see Microsoft and the Xbox team discuss it in future updates, especially in the light of PS5 Pro leaks detailing Sony's new AI-powered upscaling called PSSR. So, you know, again, like, you have to have answers to this stuff. You have to be able to have things that can kind of fight, and I don't want to say coexist, but you know, you do have to have things that kind of go out there and are comparable to what Sony is doing, regardless of what Microsoft might be doing with their exclusives or whatever. And I think one of the things that they've really kind of they've dropped the ball in a few ways this generation, right? Like if you were to ask me, you know, I would say, okay, well, where did Microsoft really drop the ball this generation? Well, there's a few places, right? First of all, they lacked a compelling launch lineup for their console that really kind of showcased what they can do. Second, they didn't give a updated UI. It just very much felt like an extension of Xbox One. You know, same controller as well. Apparently, they're going to come out with a haptic feedback controller later this year, but who knows? You know, that should have been something that they probably did originally to begin with. And then you kind of look at how these things are going, and you see that, you know, they're not, they didn't release anything in 2022. They're putting games on PlayStation. But I have to look at it and just say, the first party wise, if you look at what they've done, it's been sort of unfortunate because they put out 4 current gen only first party games so far. Hellblade 2 will be the 5th. That aren't, but I'm talking that aren't cross-gen, that aren't on PlayStation or Nintendo or, you know, any other console. That's Flight Simulator, which is 30 frames per second. They released Redfall, which was launched at 30 frames per second and has since been patched to 60 frames. Starfield, which is 30 frames per second, and then, of course, Forza Motorsport, which is 60 frames per second. So maybe this will help them be able to patch and update Starfield to run 60 frames. I'm not sure about Flight Sim. That's like one of those weird things. I don't really care for that franchise anyway. But, you know, again, it will help them do things that maybe they haven't been able to do in the future, in the past, I mean, and be competitive with Sony. Like, I think it doesn't matter to me. Like, what Microsoft, if it turns out their new updated dev kits is for a new, more powerful platform, Xbox Pro or whatever, I probably won't get it. And not only that, but it's like, I think that the PS5 Pro, from everything that we've read and everything that we've seen, realistically, it doesn't really matter because it's not as that much more powerful than the Xbox Series X, and in fact, it'll have hardware shaders and things that Xbox has now, but what PlayStation 5 doesn't have. So maybe we finally might see some of that stuff put to use for a change. You know, like that could be a good thing. I don't know. We'll see how it works out, but good update. Nice to see that. I think this would be great. I know a lot of you are probably like, oh, well, what's it all mean? Well, it just means we get better frame rates and better performance on our games on our console. So I think that's something to really look forward to. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. I certainly appreciate it. You guys have been amazing. Please like the video and share it out if you haven't already, and consider subscribing. Rack 'em up. Crap Gamer out.